Hey everybody, Lori here. Today I'm going to go over the best stretch to go to first for your low back pain. It's also really great for your hip mobility, and essentially that's what makes your low back pain feel better. But I'm going to go over the quick and easy way to do it. I'm going to give you some modifications and maybe some options if it's not feeling it on the first quick and easy version. And then I'm going to give you some deeper relief if you have a little more time on your hands. So the quick and easy first is best done with a chair, a nice firm chair, nothing too squishy. All right, sit down or cross your foot over your other knee. All right, this is supposed to be for the hip of the foot that is crossed over your knee. All right, so don't worry about where your knee is or which angle it's at right away. What I want you to worry about is the angle of your spine. I want you to have good posture while you're doing this stretch, because if just sitting here gives you a stretch back here in the glutes and the hip, great, you're done. You just have to sit here and hold it a little. I like maybe sometimes to give it a little bit of motion. If you need more stretch, take a bow forward, okay? One of the most common mistakes when someone's doing this stretch is their posture, and they'll reach forward like this and think that you're going to do more for the stretch, but in actuality you're just stretching your lower back more, which we don't want to do. We want to stretch your hip muscles and all those big glute muscles that are pulling against your low back muscles. So sit tall, take a bow forward if you need it. So from the front, eventually you want to work towards a more level shin bone. But don't force it. It doesn't matter where you're at to start, okay? You can support your knee underneath it when you take a bow forward. Sometimes I like to give it a little bit of rotation either way. One of the other common mistakes that people will make with this is that their bottom foot will either be way underneath them or not quite right underneath. Now, if this is too tight for you, an option is to put your leg out further. That actually lowers your thigh bone here and makes it a less intense stretch. That's fine. Again, always with the spinal posture. Okay, go with that. But ideally, when you're seated, you want to line up your foot right under your knee. We have good right angles going on, and then you can get further into the stretch. So, I showed you the quick and easy way to do it on anything that you can sit on, approximately that level. Number two are options. Options are to move your foot around. And then there's another one that I want to show you doing this stretch on the floor. Okay, so this is going to be the option on the floor. All right, find a nice soft ground to lay on, and then you can lay back down on the floor. One thing I like about doing this stretch on the floor is that it keeps your spine honest, okay? Keeps it in that good position. If you find that you are really rounding when you're doing that seated position, then I want you to try this laying down version. It's called a lying figure four or a lying pigeon pose, but you do the same cross of your foot over to your knee. And some of you, you might just feel a lot of stretch right here. Great, stay in this stretch. Maybe give it a little bit of a rocking, just your lower body, one side or the other, to find different muscle tightness going on. If you're flexible enough, I want you to reach through, okay, with one hand. My other hand is on the outside of the leg. So if I reach through, the other one's on the outside. If you can grab behind your leg, great. Okay, so the idea is to lift that lower leg up towards you. But I really like you to get to where you can lay your head back down. I always tell people I want you to work out and stretch in the posture that you want to keep. This is not great posture to keep, so I really want you to try to rest your head down. If that's too much, again, let go of the leg and leave it there. But if you're able to, I want you to try to grab around there. You can maybe use a towel or a strap if it's just out of your reach, okay? And then you can do it more that way. If you're flexible, then you can work on extending one leg into the air, pulling a little bit further forward. There's another option to kind of get your lower back complex in it, to try to rotate over to the ground. Or if you can't make it to the ground, then you find something to have your foot eventually rest on, and then that'll also get the hip, the waist, the obliques, a little bit of your low back, and that one feels really good if you have more time to do that. So the thing that I like, again, I want to reiterate, lying down really keeps your spine honest and keeps you in a better position. So if you're trying to do that seated stretch and you are in this kind of position, then please try it lying down. So I gave you the quick and easy. I gave you some modifications on the floor to make sure you're honest with your posture. And the third thing that I want to show you is getting in a little deeper with those glute and hip muscles. All right, if you've been having some low back pain or know that you need a little more hip mobility and you have some more time on your hands, I want to show you a few ways how you can get into your hip muscles a little bit better with some myofascial release, which just means that you're working on the muscles all around that joint. You can use a tennis ball. Tennis balls are a little softer. A lacrosse ball is what this is. You can use something called a grid. This one's a little softer. It comes in different densities, so it can be firm or soft. If anything's a little bit too much, you can cover it with a washcloth or a towel or something like that. So you have a lot of options as far as what's working. Obviously, the smaller that it is, the more specific location you're going to get to. So I'll show you initially with this grid, but especially if you know if you have one side that's tighter than the other, start with your tighter side and you can start to work into that. One thing I want you to know is that tighter doesn't necessarily mean that it's the problem side. So just stay open to which side is going to help you feel better in the long run. All right, so you can get yourself onto this and just roll back and forth with a little lean onto the one side in order to open up and get into a little bit different position in the hip. Because there's so many muscles back there, you can put your ankle up on your other knee, just like the stretch that we were doing. Now, this might be difficult for those of you who have a hard time getting into the stretch anyway. So you do have the option to be down on your shoulder, your elbow to do this, and then you can try to come up with those positions. I like to be back on my hands so I have more control of where it's going, right? So you can play around with those options on the grid. One of the things I like about lacrosse balls is they won't slide out from underneath you quite as much as the tennis ball will, but they're more dense, so they're certainly going to get right in there, and they might be a little bit intense for you. So the idea is that you want to float around, kind of find a spot that's a little tender, hang out on it. This shouldn't be excruciatingly painful, but then add a little bit of motion to that spot if that feels all right. And then just go like an inch or two away from that, add a little motion. You're in charge of where you feel that it's going to do the most benefit. Now, if this is way too intense, you can also do this standing up and put it against a wall. You look a little bit like a bear rubbing up against a tree, but it works on that one. You have all those options to get into those little spaces. You can maybe also do it seated in a chair, but those will get deeper into the muscle and help that muscle relax and give you more hip mobility, and that extra hip mobility reduces the pull on the lower back and should help you with your lower back pain.